Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm Miss McCombie and today I'm going to give you a quick guide on how to do the 8-mark question at National 5. The reason it is a quick guide is partly to benefit you and partly because it started to get dark and I wanted to see if I could get it done in time. So stick around to the end to see if I had to turn the light on. Okay, without further ado, let's go. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to give you an overview of the 8-mark question. So at this point you should know it's part of the Scottish set text, which is within the critical reading paper. So that's paper 2, that's the second exam you go into. With the Scottish set text, you get a few textual analysis questions, and then the last question is always the 8-mark question. There's never any variation, so you know that it's always going to be there. So obviously you know the question is worth 8 marks. Out of that, 2 marks are for identifying areas of commonality. So that's just things that the passage has in common with another part of the text or another poem with regards to the question. You get 2 marks for quoting and explaining from the passage, and you get 4 marks for quoting and explaining from another part of the text or from another one of the poems that you have studied. It depends what it is you did for your Scottish set text. Side note, please familiarise yourself with the Scottish set text paper because there are all of the Scottish set text that people could possibly have studied in there. And what I've seen happen in the past is people open up the paper and even though they're not familiar with what's there, they end up just answering the questions. So keep turning the pages until you get to the text you've studied. I think Jackie K is the last one, so if you're doing that, you have to turn through a lot of pages. So my next piece of advice is to lay out your answer using headings. When someone's marking it, it makes it so much easier to find points if you've not written a mini essay. I really do encourage the use of headings and bullet points here. It doesn't matter what headings you use. Some people use commonality, extract, elsewhere. If you're doing the poems, you might have done commonality, poem 1, poem 2, but I personally prefer commonality, primary and secondary, where primary is the passage that they've given you and secondary is either somewhere else in the text or another poem. This one is my personal favourite, so that's the one I'm going to use for my examples. When I'm teaching the 8-mark question, I like answers to be laid out like this. So with 2 bullet points for commonality, 2 quotes and explanations for primary, and 4 quotes and explanations for secondary. The reason that I prefer this is because a lot of people after Nat 5 choose to do higher, and at higher you get no marks for quoting, your question's worth 10 marks and you have the same amount of time to get your question done. So a lot of people really struggle to get it done, especially if they've done a quicker version. The other reason I like to do this is because it gives you more opportunities to get the answer right. So if one of them is wrong, you've still got another opportunity to get full marks. In actual fact though, you don't need to do this in order to get full marks. You can still get full marks even if you only quote and explain once for primary and twice for secondary. Like I say, I much prefer the first one. It makes for much better answers and it really does prepare you a little bit better for higher. But if you're someone who's maybe struggling a little bit, you can go with that shorter version. For the sake of the rest of this video, because I know maybe some of you are looking at this a little bit last minute, I'm going to do the slightly easier version in the examples that I'm going to do. So the first section is commonality, and this is simply how does the passage fit the question, and how does another part of the text you've studied fit the question. For drama or prose, your second bullet point will be from another part of the text. For poetry, it will almost always be from a second poem. So let's imagine that the text we're doing is the Jackie K poems, and our question is, by referring to this poet and to at least one other, show how the poet explores important relationships, and the poem they give you is Lucozade. So I want you to use the headings, so start off by writing commonality. And then your first bullet point has to be about the poem that is in front of us, which in this case is Lucozade, and specifically how it relates to relationships. So we're going to write, Jackie K uses Lucozade to explore the very close relationship between a mother who's in hospital and a daughter who is frightened she is going to die. So we've explained exactly what the relationship is. Your second bullet point has to be about any of the other Jackie K poems you've studied. Relationships are a feature of all of those poems, but because I know people quite like it, we're going to use gap year. So our second bullet point is, K also explores relationships in gap year because there is a close relationship between a son who's on a gap year and his mother who really misses him. It's as simple as that. There are so many things you can comment on for this, but you just need to link the theme of the question to the poem in the paper and to one of the other poems. Next, you're going to do primary, which gets you 2 marks. This is where you find a quote that fits the question and explain how it does so. Remember, it must come from the passage in front of you. Okay, it's literally in front of you. If you don't remember any quotes, reread the passage and have a guess. So you start by writing the heading primary, and then you're going to write a quote from the passage. Remember, the poem is Lucozade. So in this case, I'm going to go for, I am scared my mum is going to die. And that would be enough to get you 1 mark. Then you have to explain how that actually answers the question. So how does that fit the theme of relationships? So we could write something like, this suggests there is a close bond between the speaker and her mother because she has great concern for her mum and is frightened to be without her at such a young age. Then you need to do secondary. This is where you find quotes from at least one other of the Jackie Kay poems. You need to quote and explain 2 times, and it cannot be from the poem in the paper. So if they've given us Lucozade, we can talk about any of the other 5 poems, but we must not mention Lucozade here because it won't get us any marks. And this is why you need to know all your texts really well. In this case, because we mentioned gap year and commonality, that's really what we should write about here. If you panic and you can't remember enough quotes from that poem, you can just use quotes from another poem. Just make sure you mention which poem it is in your analysis. So once you've written your heading, then you can quote and explain twice like I do here. Remember, you're trying to link it to the theme of relationships. So that's one example answer. I'm really sorry I couldn't squeeze it all onto one board, though I ran out of space. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a second example from drama so you can see the difference. Remember, for plays and to an extent prose, you don't need quotes so long as you can give specific examples that fit the question. So the next one I'm going to do is from Sailmaker. The question is, by referring to this passage and elsewhere in the play, explain how the character of Davy is presented. So obviously we have to start off by writing commonality, and then we have to have our first bullet point about what Davy is like in the passage. So in this passage, Davy is seen to be passionate about his work, but unable to act on his skills. Our second bullet point must be about Davy somewhere else in the play. It could be at the start, it could be the end, it's completely up to you. So I've put earlier in the play, Davy shows that he is someone who holds in his emotions because he doesn't let himself mourn his wife's death. Pretty straightforward, right? Now we need to do primary. So in this case, I've got a quote. Remember, you don't need a quote so long as you've got an example, but I thought a quote was easy enough because it's written down in front of me. So the quote I went with was, made a shopping bag for your mother, made you a swing. And this suggests that Davy has pride and passion for his skills as a sailmaker and liked using those skills to make gifts for his family. That's enough for 2 marks. And then we do secondary, so write down the heading. And then you need to have some examples. In this case, I've gone for your mammy's dead. This is a blunt way to tell someone their mum has died, which suggests Davy is blunt and not good at dealing with emotions. And then you'll notice for the second example, I've done Davy is someone who looks on the bright side. For example, when he loses his job as a tick man. This suggests he's always putting a brave face on things, even though he's struggling to take care of himself and Alec. So there you go, that's 2 examples, and I think these questions are a lot more straightforward than people think they are. So it's time for some top tips. And yes, it did get dark and I did have to turn the light on, but we can see it a bit better now. So my first top tip is to know your text really well. In order to be able to complete the secondary section, you need to have quotes or examples from other parts of the text or other poems. So you need to know them really well. If you've got a long text, good luck. You'll have to read those quickly before the exam. Which brings me on to my next tip. Create mind maps, tables, and quote banks. This will help you remember quotes, it will help you understand your text a bit more clearly, and if you've got a longer text, I would kind of advise creating a general timeline of things that happen as well. Thirdly, look at the past papers of your Scottish set text so that you can see the main themes that come up for your text. And lastly, use the headings and bullet points. It makes it so much easier for your marker to find your answer. I know it might not seem right, but it is. And don't write just pages and pages and pages of nothing, because that's just going to waste your time. And there you have it. That is my quick guide on how to do the 8-mark question at National 5. If you have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!